Live NFL trivia every Wednesday night on Twitch at 9 p.m. Eastern. Come show off your football knowledge for a chance to win cash prizes. Check the link in the description to find out more. And now, on with our feature presentation. The last time that Oregon made it to the college football playoff was the very first year of the playoffs' existence back in 2014. Seems somewhat crazy to think about, seeing how successful Oregon has consistently been during that time frame. However, for years and years, even though the Ducks have found themselves at or near the top of the conference, it seems as though every time they have an opportunity to make it back to the playoff, they find a way in November to shoot themselves in the foot. In 2019, Oregon looks like they're one of the best teams in the nation, and they have to go on the road to play an unranked Arizona State team that lost 4 straight games and is absolutely reeling. No problem, right? Well, the Sun Devils pull off the upset and destroy the Pac-12's playoff hopes right then and there. In 2021, Oregon enters their game against Utah as the number 3 ranked team in the nation. They just have to not get embarrassed by Utah, and they're good. Instead, they lost 38-7, and the Pac-12's chances of making the playoffs are done. And this year, in 2022, Oregon enters their game against Washington as one of the best and hottest teams in the nation, and they're playing at home, where they've won 23 straight games. All they have to do is win this game, and they're in line to finally give the Pac-12 a playoff appearance and make it back for the first time in nearly a decade. Instead,
4th down and 1 for Oregon from its own 34. Will they snap it here?
Hang on, let's back up just a bit before I show the play that left a lot of fans scratching their heads, left a lot of Oregon fans upset that their playoff hopes were dead, and left many criticizing and lashing out at head coach Dan Lanning for what many call the dumbest play of the entire season. November 11th, 2022. We have an absolutely monumental Pac-12 game on our hands in front of a national television audience on Fox between the Oregon Ducks and the Washington Huskies. The stakes for this game are huge for Oregon. They enter this one at 6-0 in the conference, and an 8-1 overall, having not lost a game since opening day, when they lost to the defending national champion Georgia. Ever since that game, they've been on a collision course for the conference title, and for a possible spot in the playoff. They've got one of the top offenses in the nation, as they're number 4 in the country by averaging over 42 points per game. And during this 8-game winning streak, they've scored at least 41 points in every game, averaging a whopping 48.1 points per game. If they win this game, then as the number 6 ranked team in the nation, considering the fact that Tennessee, above them, cannot play for their conference title, and one of Ohio State or Michigan, both of whom are above them, is guaranteed to lose, then not only do they inch one step closer to the Pac-12 championship, but they have a legitimate shot at making it to the playoff for the first time since 2014. And considering the stakes, what we got was one of the best games of the entire season. It was a true back-and-forth affair, where at no point did either team lead by 2 or more possessions, as the lead changed hands quite a few times. After Washington led at 13-10 at the half, the lead changed hands 5 times in the third quarter alone, with each of Oregon's 3 drives that quarter ending in a touchdown, and each of Washington's 2 drives that quarter also ending in touchdowns. But with 3:16 left in the contest, following a lengthy 20-play, 91-yard drive to give Oregon a 34-27 lead, Washington answered and silenced the crowd, as on 3rd and 7, Michael Penix Jr. hit Taj Davis for a 62-yard touchdown to tie the game at 34 apiece. Just like that, this crazy game was nowhere close to being over. However, even though Oregon fans were beginning to sweat, at no point were they panicking. Remember, this was an Oregon team that had one of the top offenses in the nation. This was a team that in each of their 4 drives thus far in the half scored points, getting 3 touchdowns and a field goal. This was a team that in each of their 8 drives this game made it into Washington territory. The Huskies could not stop the Ducks all day, and now Oregon's got a chance to work the clock and be the last one to touch the ball. First down, and Noah Whittington runs down the left side of the field for a gain of 3. Second down, and Whittington tries running up the middle. Not a whole lot there, as he only picks up 3. Now we've got a big third down coming up. Third down, and this time, the handoff goes to Christian Gonzalez up the middle. But just like the first down play and the second down play, it only picks up 3 yards. For the first time all day, Oregon's going 3 and out. Washington stopped them in their own territory. Talk about a disappointing end to the drive, as now the Ducks have to punt the ball away. Unless they're crazy enough to actually go for it. Unless head coach Dan Lanning is insane enough to call a play in their own territory, knowing that if you get stuffed, that's the ball game. He's not crazy enough to actually leave the offense out there on his own 34-yard line in this situation, right?
Yes, and Whittington slips. Washington takes over.
Yep, he did that. And not only did Oregon get stuffed, but you can probably guess how this one ends. Washington, with the great field position, ends up kicking a 43-yard field goal with 51 seconds left to give Washington a 37-34 lead, which was the final score of the game. And afterwards, you can bet that a ton of people criticized Lanning for that decision. Going for it on 4th down in your own territory, knowing that if you don't get it, it's game over? That seems like a really dumb decision. Not only that, but that decision may have single-handedly cost your team a shot at the Pac-12 championship, a shot at the Rose Bowl, and more importantly, a shot at making it to the college football playoff. However, and this is going to come as a surprise to a ton of you, even though a ton of people criticized Dan Lanning here, I have to come to his defense, because I had no problem with the decision to go for it and call that play. I actually didn't think the call was that bad. And if you think this was the wrong call, then maybe after this, you change your mind, because this call might not be as bad as you think. Welcome to In Defense Of. Let's dive right in. Before we go any further, I fully acknowledge that the risk-reward of this might not weigh at all in Oregon's favor, and in the favor of what Lanning actually did. The risk is obvious. If you don't get the first down, barring something crazy on Washington's side, where they get a penalty to take themselves out of field goal range, or where Peyton Henry shanks the kick, it's game over, and you're going to lose the game barring a miracle. And if you do get the first down, well, you're still quite a ways away, and you're not guaranteed whatsoever to score, or even come close to scoring. This is not like you went for it in a position where if you got one more first down, you would be in scoring range. You still need about 3 more after this just to have a shot. So if the risk-reward analysis might not be there on the surface, then why am I totally fine with this play call, even if it didn't work out? Well, there are 2 key reasons. Number 1, you need 1 measly yard. All you need to do is get 1 yard and you keep the drive alive. It's not a lot to ask for. And Oregon was absolutely torching Washington all day on the ground. What you're watching right now is a compilation of just some of the runs that Oregon had on this day. Prior to the failed run, Oregon ran the ball 49 times. On those 49 runs, the Ducks gained at least 1 yard on 46 of them. Remember, they only needed 1 yard to get the first down, and they got that 46 out of 49 times, or 94% of the time. They went for it twice on 4th down beforehand in this game, and both times, they ran it and they got it. They picked up the first down. And on those 49 runs, they picked up 317 yards, coming out to 6.5 yards per carry. And the man who was getting the ball on the play, Noah Whittington, was playing a great game, having picked up yards on 18 out of 19 carries thus far. And he was averaging 5.7 yards per carry, including 6.8 yards per carry over his last 12 attempts. The odds that Oregon was going to pick up the first down by leaving the offense out on the field, considering the success of their offense on the ground all day, were astronomically high. And this is especially true when you realize that if the man who got the ball here, Noah Whittington, stayed upright and didn't slip, we're not even talking about this play call as a dumb play. Because folks, if you pause the clip right here and Whittington can just stay on his feet instead of committing the unforced error, this is a touchdown. At the very least, this is a huge play. Don't believe me? There are no linebackers behind the line acting as a second line of defense. The right guard is picking up his man, the center is picking up his man, Whittington is looking and going that way, and he's got daylight. If he doesn't fall, we're talking about a probable touchdown. At the very least, Oregon's getting into field goal range. I can't fault the coach for going for it in this situation when the play would have worked perfectly, just as it had all game, if the running back didn't slip. He just stays on his feet, and he's got daylight. And number two, if you punt the ball away, how can you possibly trust your defense to get a stop against Washington's offense? If the defense had held Washington to single-digit points, and the Huskies had gone 3-and-out constantly, that's one thing. But if Oregon showed one thing all game defensively, especially in the second half, it's that they could not stop the Huskies one bit. Field position was irrelevant. If you gave the ball back to Washington, you were probably not getting it back. Or at the very least, they were going to score on you. If they threw the ball on you, well, Penix had about 400 yards by this point. If they ran the ball on you, they had over 5 yards per carry. Washington had 4 drives in the second half at that point. They started these drives at their own 35-yard line, their own 25-yard line, their own 1-yard line, and their own 35-yard line. In the best case scenario for their offense, meaning that they drove 65 yards, 75 yards, 99 yards, and 65 yards, Washington could have picked up 304 yards. You want to know how many yards Washington picked up on those 4 drives in the second half? 303. They picked up a whopping 99.7% of the yards that they could have gotten, scoring 3 touchdowns and driving all the way down to the 1-yard line on the drive that started on their own 1-yard line before throwing an interception. So if you're Dan Lanning, what do you feel more comfortable with? Your offense, which had been on cruise control all day and has been torching Washington's defensive line all day on the ground to pick up 1 yard? Or your defense, which has allowed 303 yards in the second half out of 304 to get a stop? I know which one I'm picking, and when you put it like that, odds are I know which one most of you are picking as well. And credit to Dan Lanning afterwards for not only owning the decision, but for not really second-guessing himself, because this really was the right call. Lanning said on that play, you can say in retrospect, we should punt there, have a chance. But you also feel like, hey, you get that first, you probably have a chance to go win the game. We were able to run the ball there in the second half. I don't know that they stopped us much there. That was the only negative play the entire second half in the run game. So we felt like we're going to fall forward. We've been a team that can get a yard or two consistently this year, and we didn't get it done there. He knows it. That was the right call, considering how great his offense was playing and how poor his defense was playing. And if Whittington doesn't slip, then this is a complete non-story and a moot point. Just to recap, the offense picked up yards on 94% of their running attempts and was averaging over 6.5 yards per carry on the day. They needed 1 yard and had gone for it twice before, converting both times in similar situations. The give was to a running back who had been torching Washington all day, averaging just a hair under 6 yards per carry. And if they punted the ball away, then they would be putting their faith in a defense that had allowed 99.7% of their possible yardage in the second half, and had done about as good of a job covering the field as a tarp with massive holes in it does at covering water. No, this play did not work, but I'm more than willing to give Lanning a pass for this play. Because when you break all that down, this is one decision you can definitely make a defense for. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.